Okay, here's another functional notation type problem. This is a little bit weird. You get a kind of crazy answer, but let's see. It still kind of works the same way. Let's just pretend, but let's not even think about this problem right now. What if all I said was find g of, I don't know, 3? All right, what would you do if it said find g of 3? Well, you'd take that 3 and you'd put it into the g function. Here's the g function right here. So you take g of 3, you put that 3 right in for the x and work it all out. Well, the thing is, this is not g of 3 though, is it? This is g of x plus h. But the process is the same. Instead of this being a 3, it's kind of weird, it's an x plus h, so what we're going to do is take that x plus h and put it in for that x right there and do whatever it says to do to it. Minus g of x. Well, what's g of x? G of x is just this whole thing. So I'm going to take this x plus h, stick it in for this, and I'm going to subtract the x squared plus 7, which is a g of x. Watch what we do. So instead of x squared, what's it going to be? It's going to be x plus h squared. Put it in parentheses, and then finish it off plus 7. That's g of x plus h. It's kind of like putting a 3 in for this. Instead of going 3 squared plus 7, it's what? It's x plus h squared plus 7. Then we got to do the subtraction. Minus, so we've taken that whole thing, we're subtracting g of x. Well, what is g of x? G of x is this whole entire thing right here. So it's just, now it's a sum, so make sure you put it in parentheses, x squared plus 7. And now they just want you to simplify this thing. So let's do it. X plus h quantity squared. This is a binomial times a binomial, so we need to do the FOIL method. Now some of you guys should know how to do this in your head. We've talked about that before, but let's just write it out just in case you don't see it. And then what? Plus 7 minus x squared. Don't forget to distribute that negative, and then it's going to be minus 7. Let's do this though. All right, we're going to do FOIL with this thing right here. It's going to be first outside, inside, last. That's going to be first x squared. Outside is plus xh. Inside right here is another xh, and then the last is h squared. All right, look what happens here. The plus 7 and the minus 7 add up to 0, and then you got a minus x squared right here. Let's see what we can do now. I see another one, don't you? X squared and then a minus x squared. So they add up to 0. And then you just add some like terms right here. This is 1xh plus 1xh. If I got 1 plus 1, that gives me what? 2xh. And then plus, what else is left? H squared. That's all I can do with it. Alright, and that's the answer to this. Kind of crazy, but they want it in simplest form. That's how you should write your answer. Alright, we're going in a little different direction here. We're going to go slope this time. Find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points. Well, we need to know a way to find the slope. Well, slope, we have a little formula for it. It's the change in y over the change in x, or the rise over the run, however you want to say it. Or you could just subtract the y's, subtract the x's. Some books write y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. It doesn't make any difference as long as you subtract them in the same order. So you come up here. This is your x1, your y1. This is your x2 and your y2, which means you just subtract the y's. Make sure you do the y's, put them on top. Some people mess this up and put the x's on the top. So let's do the y's first, not the x's. So it's going to be 8 minus 3. As long as you subtract the y's in the same order from the x's, then you're fine. So it's 8 minus 3, the first one minus the second one, and then it's 4 minus 6, and that goes on the bottom. That's 5 over negative 2. You can just leave it like that if you want. I don't know, I just kind of like to put it out in front or on top, and there's your answer. That's the slope of the line that goes through those 2 points. Okay, since we're talking about slope, we're going to graph a line, so let's graph it. It says graph the line through this point 0, 4. So find the point 0, 4. Would be right here. Just put a little dot right there. And then here's the slope. Remember, m stands for the slope. It's negative 1/3. You could look at it a couple ways. I'm just going to look at it like this. It's the rise over the run. So I'm going to rise negative 1, run 3. Now you could do it the other way. You could rise 1 and run negative 3. It'll still be the same exact line. But the way that I've set this thing up, I'm going to do it like this. It's negative 1 over 3. So I'm going to rise negative 1 just down to here. Don't put a dot yet. We still have to run. So we run, which means we're going to go to the right 3 places. 1, 2, 3. Put a dot right there. All right, then just draw a straight line between them. I'm going to use a little program here to do that, and just extend it out a little bit. It doesn't have to be extended, it just looks a lot nicer if it actually does go through the 2 points. That's all there is to that one. Alright, let's move on to some just basic straight up algebra stuff. So let's do number 13. I'm going to rewrite it, so it's going to be 3x. Tell you what, while I'm rewriting it, let's just distribute the negative through both of these, make it a little easier for us. So it's 3x minus 8 plus x equals, now watch, I'm not going to mess with anything else except that minus in between. So I'm going to put an 8 right here, take this negative and distribute that through all three of these. So it's going to be 8, and then it's going to be minus 5, minus 3x, minus a negative is plus 6. So let's work with that. First thing I do is simplify both sides before I start moving anything over. So let's do this. 3x plus x is 4x minus 8. Come over here and do what's in the parentheses first. And then in this bracket, you can call it parentheses, whatever you want. So let's add some like terms. Let's see. The only x we have is that minus 3x. Let's do the regular terms. 8 minus 5 is 3, plus 6 is 9, so we put a plus 9 right here. You could make that a parentheses or a bracket, doesn't make any difference. Alright, there's still nothing to do on the left-hand side, but there's a little bit more to do here. Take the 5 and distribute it through this. So I'm going to get negative 15x plus 45. See, I just took the 5 through both of those. Now, we've simplified both sides. Now we want to get the x on the same side. It doesn't matter what side. I probably would prefer to put this on the left-hand side. So I add a 15x to this side. I add a 15x to the other side. Now look, in the same step, we've gotten rid of the x and we've put it on the left-hand side. Instead of dropping everything down right now, let's get rid of the minus 8. I do that by adding an 8 and adding an 8 right here. Let's see what we get. 4 plus 15 is 19x. Those added up to 0. Those canceled out as well, added up to 0. And this is, let's see, what's that, 53? Okay. And divide both sides by 19. Divide that by 19. That doesn't go even, so we're not going to write it as a decimal. We're just going to keep it 53 over 19. There's no reason to write it as a decimal, no reason to write it as a mixed number. Just keep it improper, and as long as it's simplified, it's good to go. Let's go on to the next one. Key to this problem right here is these denominators. We want to get rid of the denominators. The best way to do that is to multiply everything by something that the denominators will go into, right? We'll divide into evenly. So we have to find one number that 5, 4, and 2 all divide into evenly. Least common multiple is what that's called. So let's see. Looks like 20. Okay, so all these will go into 20. That's the smallest number that all three of those will go into evenly. Now watch what we do. I'm going to take 20, multiply that by 20, multiply that by 20, and multiply that by 20. Now the whole reason, we're not going to take the 20 and distribute it through. Watch what we're going to do. That 5 divides into 20 4 times. This 4 goes into 20 5 times, and this 2 goes into 20 10 times. Let's go back to black. That's the whole reason we want to do that. Look what happened to our denominators. They all canceled out. They all went away. So now all I got to do is figure out and clean up this mess a little bit and multiply everything through. And then we have a straight up regular algebra problem. So let's do this. It's going to be 4 times this stuff right here. It's distributive property. So it's 16x minus 4 times 8, which is 32. Put a plus right here. It's 5 times this stuff in parentheses. So 5 times 2x is 10x. And then 5 times negative 9 is minus negative 45. Look what happens here. Just 3 times 10, which is 30. Now that looks a whole lot better than what we started off with. So now we can just do regular basic algebra, add like terms, and all that kind of stuff that we did earlier. 16x plus 10x is 26x. So I'm done with that, done with that. Let's see what we get here. We can do this a little bit in our head. This is going to be negative, what, 77? So how do I get rid of negative 77? I add a 77. So I add a 77 to both sides. You could write it out if you like. I just kind of did a little bit in my head. Now, 30 plus 77 is 107. Solve for x, divide by 26. And I don't believe that reduces, so that's all you do. You just keep it 107 over 26. No reason to Make it a decimal, no reason to make it a mixed number. Just keep it improper and you're good to go.